You're just a horrible person.
All right, here we go.
You asking for a slapping?
So, the
What if you
kind of
said
exciting
yeah?
thing as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned is
Not
that
on the
we're
face,
finally
though.
starting to get to the part where you get to do some of the talking and
Wait,
I do less talking.
Why?
that's no
So,
fun.
just a reminder, starting tomorrow, at least one of you, probably more like two of you per day, coming up here telling the group about your either terrorist group or your current conflict. 3-ish to 6-ish minutes is what we're looking for. And I will tell you tomorrow, while the person is up here presenting, what are the rest of you doing? Are you accountable for anything that is being presented?
No.
Yes. But you'll be, I think the strategy that I've employed, will I think be something that we all can handle. In addition, we are writing the Vietnam paper together. And I have, by this point, forced you to take a position on the Vietnam War, whether or not the United States was justified in participating in the Vietnam War. In order to successfully write the paper, I'm having you argue before a jury that is not in the room right now. That this jury is made up of individuals who are right now not in this room. That will be Friday. Friday, 2:10. Friday, we have this class, last hour of the day, 2:10 to 3:10. There will be two teams. Team one will argue the U.S. was justified in fighting in the Vietnam War. Any information that we've covered in class, including the documents that we've gone over, but you can go beyond that. Find information. You have access to more information than I ever had when I was your age. Your job is not to convince the other team. Your job is not to convince me. Your job is to convince the jury. And I guarantee the jury will be seated at this table right here. Convince the jury that the U.S. should have been in the Vietnam War, that team, which will be about half of you. So about 15-ish of you will be on that team. That does not mean all 15 of you need to be speakers. The speakers might be 3 or 4 of you. You could have all 15 of you speak. That's fine. You do not have to. And I'll talk more about how do you make this thing. We're going to create 2 teams in class today, and you're going to elect your leader, and the leader will create a shareable Google Doc with everyone in your team so that you all have access to it, and then somehow subdivide the arguments so that there are multiple presenters for the jury. Okay, and then same thing with the other side. The no, we should not have participated team. You will go next. The only rule is there needs to be some sort of visual. We need to be looking at something. Don't just read quotes from the documents that I've given you. Have the quotes up here. Have maps. Have charts. Have short video clips. The no, we shouldn't team. You have permission to have pictures that are disturbing. Like, for example, the My Lai picture that I showed you, right? You can do that. You can. Any of you had Miss Spurl in previous years? So she talked in her class, I believe, about ethos, pathos, logos.
Sure did.
Man, what a great strategy that is. Appeal to the intellectual side of the jury, appeal to the emotional side of the jury, and rip the credibility of the arguments of the other side. In essence, that's what ethos, pathos, logos is, right? Intellectual, emotional, questionable credibility of the other side. Why are my sources better than their sources? That's the idea. Okay, you could do it that way, right? Having said that, we have a paper that we're writing. There's now a debate that's due Friday. More details to come on that. You are presenting your slideshow on either your current topic, either that terrorist group or a current conflict. That's your world in this class. Any questions? Okay, let me cover a few things, and then we're going to get going. I want a maximum amount of time between today and Friday so that you're not spending time outside of class. I don't want that to be the case. I mean, if you want to spend a little bit of time during resource time, fine. But I'm not, there's none of this, I got to go over to Ben's house because we have to finish up that project sort of thing. I don't want that to be the case. Okay. Part of the argument for American involvement was the belief that if they did not stop communism in Vietnam, excuse me for a moment. Mr. Barry, are you able to be here?
Wait, this is on Friday?
Yeah,
That's the jury right
Mr.
there.
Barry is the jury? What a surprise.
What a surprise.
He's so good at it. Okay. Question.
I won't be here on Friday.
All right. Part of the argument
But I want you here.
for American involvement in Vietnam was
What's your
the
problem,
belief
man?
that if you did not stop the spread of communism in Vietnam, it would spread to neighboring countries. And now I'm sharing with you possible historical evidence to prove that that was the case. You're looking at a map of Vietnam. I know it's kind of hard for some of you to see what we're looking at, but Vietnam is to the right of that line that you see. Not the solid red line. That's something else. But the black line, to the right of it, that's Vietnam. To the left of that black line is a thick red line. That is the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was kind of brilliant. If you're the United States, this is South Vietnam right here. The border between South and North Vietnam is right here, that black line right there. The Americans put soldiers right on that line. So what the North Vietnamese did was simply sneak soldiers through Laos and Cambodia into southern Vietnam on a trail called the Ho Chi Minh Trail. When the Americans found out about the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they immediately started bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Anyone see a problem with that?
Nah. It's in Laos and
It's not in Vietnam. So, what's your problem?
They're now involved in other.
Very good. So, we're now bombing Laos and Cambodia. So, Laos and Cambodia are like, hey, Americans, what are you doing? And our response was, we're bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail. You're bombing our country. Well, exactly. Okay. Which did then resulted the spread of the Vietnam War to Cambodia and Laos. There was a revolution in Cambodia. A communist government ended up taking power in Cambodia. So my question to you is, was the domino theory correct?
they're like parasites.
In that one case. Well, but not always.
I
Small
guess.
bombs.
I mean, I guess you could argue we didn't stop the spread of communism in Vietnam, and as a result, it spread to Cambodia. But there's another way of looking at it, and it goes something like this. We were the ones who spread it. We did that. By bombing Cambodia, we spread the conflict to Cambodia. So, I mean, I guess it kind of happened. Not exactly the way the domino theory suggests, though. Okay. Just a brief little history of what happened in Cambodia. There was this group in Cambodia called the Khmer Rouge. There they are, the Khmer Rouge. And they were, if you're taking notes on this, put parentheses communists, because that's what they were. They were communists. Only I'm going to call them nutcase communists. I mean, off the deep end communists, as in any hint of any sort of private ownership is bad. And cities are bad. So all cities in Cambodia, I mean, if this weren't real, I would have a hard time believing this actually happened. But all major cities in Cambodia were abandoned. They left the cities. Everyone moved out to the countryside in these huge farms called collectives. Nobody owned the farms, right? Because it's a communist country. So Cambodia owned the farms. And everyone worked at these farms. You were shot and executed if you had glasses. You know why?
Not perfect.
Prescribed by a doctor. Not or different. Privately.
So you three would be in trouble. You two would be in trouble. He'd be in
I
trouble.
don't need my
She'd be in
glasses to
trouble.
see. I don't need it
Any ideas?
because it's Western. It's modernized.
If you owned glasses, they did not have time to investigate how smart you were, but the assumption was you're pretty smart. You needed glasses. Why do you need glasses? To read. You can read. And as a result, you were a threat. You were executed. Teachers were executed. Professors were executed. Anybody that had the ability to independently think was either re-educated or executed.
Re-educate.
Re-educated. It got so bad. Think about what I'm about to say. It got so bad in Cambodia that Vietnam invaded Cambodia and overthrew the government. Do you understand what kind of government was Vietnam?
A good one.
Communist government. What kind of government was Cambodia?
Communist.
Communist government. And one communist government overthrew the other communist government.
They're two communists.
Well, I think what you need to understand is kind of exemplified here. Just because this government is communist and this government is communist, that doesn't make them allies. I mean, according to that logic, Britain and France should have gotten along great because they both had kings. Of course they didn't get along great. They're two different countries. These two countries had economic systems called communism, but that doesn't mean they're allies. The name of the guy was Pol Pot. There he is.
Beautiful man.
Pol Pot. He was the leader of the communists in Cambodia called the Khmer Rouge. He's the leader of the Khmer Rouge that ruled in Cambodia. And when Vietnam invaded, he fled. Any of you know the geographic description of that area of the world? What's the dominant geographic feature? Are we looking at mountains or desert? What are we looking at?
Jungle.
Jungle. It is jungle. It's very easy to disappear. He disappeared. In 1979, he disappeared, right? Because the Vietnamese were coming to overthrow him, he fled. That story I told you about all the intellectuals being executed is exemplified in this picture right here. You might not know what you're looking at. Those are skulls. Those are human skulls that they collected to show everybody, to scare them about what might happen to you if you were naughty. Here's one of those huge farms. Everyone's working. And these farms. Weird ending to this story. He disappeared in 1979. Almost 20 years later, a random phone call to a police station in Cambodia gave coordinates. In 1998, there was this new invention that all of you have probably within 2 feet of you right now. At the time, it was an amazing invention created by the U.S. military. Anyone know what I'm talking about?
GPS.
GPS. That's exactly right. GPS. So 1998, this is still kind of new. And so the person on the phone basically said, you got a pencil? Write this down, and gave the coordinates and then hung up. Police thought that was sort of weird, but they followed the coordinates. There was a house. They stormed into the house ready for anything. And this is what they found. Some guy that looks like he's asleep on a pretty low bed. That's Pol Pot. He did. That's all the information given. They just found a dead Pol Pot. There he was. I don't even know if they determined how he died. I assume they did, but I don't know the answer to that. Okay. The reason all of this is interesting is because you could use this information to either justify or argue against American participation in Vietnam, depending on your view of it. Okay. One more slide here, and then we're going to give you the rest of the hour to kind of think about this debate that's going to happen Friday. I call it final costs. Any of you have been to Washington, D.C.? Did you see the Vietnam Memorial? Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Truly is amazing. It's cool because you descend into the Vietnam Memorial. With each step, you get a little bit lower. That's intentional, as if to suggest that's how the U.S. got involved. At first, just a little bit of involvement, and then with each passing day, more and more involved. Every single name of Americans who were killed in Vietnam is etched in stone. Something like 60-ish thousand names, every one. And you'll notice in this picture, and if those of you who saw the Vietnam Memorial, do you remember that it's very reflective? The stone is very reflective, as if to say, that could have been me. See that name there? That could have been me. Could have been you, right? Intentional, okay? This isn't going to work if this is going to be what's happening. So you guys need to figure something else, okay? So was it worth it? Was it worth, that should say 60,000. Was it worth 60,000 lives, American lives, for a war where the U.S. decided to get out and then Vietnam became communist anyway, right? Is this worth it? Now, those of you who are arguing in favor of, you have an answer to that based on the documents, right? Just some other things that are sort of interesting. Any of you ever heard of the Hmong people? The Hmong? Yes? You happen to live near the largest concentration of Hmong outside of Southeast Asia. The Twin Cities is the largest concentration of Hmong people in the world outside of where their native land is, which is basically right about here. That's Hmong land, I guess. But you'll notice there is no Hmong land. They do not have their own country. This is a people without their own nation. Sort of like Jews, exactly right. The Jews, after they were conquered by neighboring empires, were a people without a nation. And what happens to those people? They spread out. They go to other places where they are treated as a minority population wherever they are. When the first, you might wonder, like, why would the Hmong come to the Twin Cities? It's not like the climate is the same. It really isn't. It really, really is not the same, right? This is jungle, and the Twin Cities is not jungle, as you know.
Are you sure?
Why hear that? Anyone have a theory?
So did you
Right. That's not a bad answer, actually. Yeah.
Isn't like Minnesota one of those states though that's like way more open to refugees and that type of thing?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. Yep. Just happens that at the time, so you're talking about late 70s, 1970s, the state of Minnesota had excellent volunteer organizations, and one of them was the Lutherans. Minnesota's full of Lutherans. And they happened to have a very well-developed volunteer outreach program, as if to say, hey, refugees, hey, what's a refugee? What is a refugee as opposed to an immigrant? All refugees are immigrants, but not all immigrants are refugees. What's the difference? Very good. A refugee is someone fleeing war. That is specifically what a refugee is. Okay. Hey, refugees, come to Minnesota. We have volunteer programs ready to help you. And a few Hmong, including my cousin's girlfriend's dad. You follow that? My cousin's girlfriend's father, who was a general in the South Vietnamese army. He wasn't Hmong. This is another story. He was a general in the South Vietnamese army, was captured by the North Vietnamese, bribed his way out of the prison, paid for everyone else in the prison, bribed the guards, got a boat that looked like that piece of junk, made it to the Philippines from Vietnam, made it to the Philippines, got on a plane, flew to the Twin Cities, had a daughter. She met my cousin. They fell in love for a while, and then that was it. I mean, isn't that amazing? Right? After the first few Hmong moved to the Twin Cities, later Hmong would say, where are the other Hmong? Any of you been to Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York? If you've ever been to any large cities, you know that there is an enclave of people from the same ethnic group that live together. In San Francisco, there's Chinatown. Do you know why? Because when the Chinese immigrants arrived, they said, where are the other Chinese? I want to be with my people. And so they enclaved. That's why the Hmong. The first few Hmong moved to the Twin Cities. The later Hmong said, where are the Hmong at? Twin Cities. More and more and more. So something like 260,000 Hmong live in the Twin Cities. The next closest is, I think, North Carolina with something like 40,000. So by and large, by far, the Twin Cities is the largest concentration of Hmong. My point here, though, is this evidence that you could use to argue for or against American participation in the Vietnam War? You could. You could. Okay? Questions? Over 1 million Vietnamese killed. Over 1 million. Vietnam's a small country, right? Has the U.S. ever had 1 million people die in a single war?
No.
Nope. The closest we've ever come is American Civil War, about 650,000. And I want to take a shot here. If you counted every single American death in every single war we've ever been in ever.
Isn't it like under 2 million?
How many? He says under 2 million.
1.3 million.
1.3 million? That's a really good guess. It's about 1.3 million. Who are you? 1.3 million. Every war we've ever been in, ever. 1.3 million. Just to give you some perspective, in World War II alone, the Soviet Union lost about 20 million. Just World War II. Every war. No wonder we like war. It's not so bad for us. Name the last major battle to take place in the U.S.
Gettysburg.
Honestly, that might be right. Yeah, but Pearl Harbor wasn't exactly a battle. Kind of, I guess.
Raid.
Pearl Harbor's not a bad guess. Let's say it wasn't a battle. That it was more of a surprise attack. So take Pearl Harbor out. What would be the previous one? I don't even know.
The last battle of the Civil War.
Yeah, there was no major battle during World War I here.
No.
There was no major battle during the Spanish-American War. I think it was the Battle of Atlanta. No, Richmond. I think it was the Battle of Richmond. That might be wrong. Actually, I do know the Japanese successfully conquered one of the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. Population of the island, like 11. But they got it, man. They got it.
What a good fight.
Okay. So I am now going to have you. I need to see a ballpark. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, there's about 30 of us in here. Will we all put our heads down on the table now?
What are you gonna do then? What am I gonna do?
Don't ask each other. Be strong. Have your own opinion. I need about 15 of you per side. We can do some wiggling if it's kind of close. Will you now please raise your hand, but keep your heads down if you would like to argue that the U.S. was justified in participating in the Vietnam War? Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Perfect! Ha ha! Wonderful.
Is it exact?
Close. Okay, so you people, there were 15 of you that raised your hands.
What do you mean by you people?
Will you please congregate? Go ahead and push the tables together so that you're sitting at one table, like around Ethan. Fine.
Us victors.
You people over there. If you did not raise your hand, that means you're going to argue the U.S. was not justified. Will you push the tables together and meet right here? Right there. Right there. Go. Take a step with you.
Pushing the tables together?
Oh!
Not this table.
Wait, so which side's which?
Yes, we were. No, we weren't. Should have been there. Should not have been there. Yes. No.
What did you guess?
I don't know. Make the decision for me.
Better jet than
Oh, yes. This is a good spot to grab a porta potty as well. So grab a computer, everyone. It is important that we're all like facing like toward the middle. So can we all be like this is perfect. Maybe have one.
No, not American flags. It's just that looks weird.
I'll wear a suit.
I'll wear a suit.
Should we do the color red?
And then Ben and I each have 3x5 US flags. We can do something like that.
I got big flag.
We all have a 3x5, don't we? So we got
Do you
three
want to
of
get
them.
like a Vietnamese?
Okay, is there some sort of order here?
Oh, like president has.
Okay. Is this what I'm seeing? Yes, we were. No, we weren't. There you go. So this is what's got to happen. Both teams need to choose your leader. I'll give you a minute. Go. Who's your leader? Who's your champion? Champion, relax. You have no special responsibility besides a few tasks. Nothing overwhelming, I promise. Okay, will you raise your hand if you're the champion? It's you? Okay. Will you two please get on to Google and create a Google slideshow now? That is correct. Google Slides. Call it Vietnam debate, and then your side, yes, no. And then I will give you the next set of instructions. This should take probably a couple minutes. You need to share this document with everyone in your team. So that means getting the names of everybody, typing it in, so they all have access to this document you are now creating. I know there are a couple missing
Then
that.
just wait.
It'll work. It'll work.
Is your profile pic down there? What's your name?
One strategy, everybody, you just write your name and your Google email, give it to the person. So if they don't finish it today, they will. Oh, he's flying. Yeah, I know. As this is going on, I'm giving instructions now to everybody else. So not our two leaders, everybody else. Find yourself in a mini group of 3 to 4. Like, create a subgroup within your team. And sit with those people. Yes, I mean those people.
Is there a speaker for the subgroup?
Yes.
What's your name?
Be careful.
You still need this.
Yeah, Friday.
If I can do this fast enough.
Go on, I got 3 more. What's your name? Peter? There you go. It's all shared. What? Oh, yeah. I love this.
This is it, right? They spend the rest of the hour doing this stuff.